Hi everyone, welcome to this video tutorial. This is Methods in Context, and today we're going to use a focus group to investigate boys and achievements. This video tutorial will walk you through how to think in context. We'll start with the method, apply to the school, and end with the context in the question. Let's start off with a quick reminder about what the method in context is. This question is worth 20 marks and you should spend 30 minutes on this answer. The instruction is to use the item for the hooks as well as the strengths and weaknesses of the method, and the main focus is to apply to the context in education. So some important things to consider. Students, when answering, need to consider the characteristics of the people, the group, the students, the teachers being studied and how it may impact the research. Therefore, show good AO1 of the method and the characteristics of the research. AO2, apply to the school and the context in the question using your item and your own knowledge. And AO3, evaluate strengths and weaknesses, faults and pitfalls of studying the group in the question. The main point for this video is to ensure that you are discussing and you are applying to the context. The context and the method this video will explore is evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of using a focus group to investigate boys and achievement. There is a handy handout for you to download if you wish, and this will help you make notes as you watch this video tutorial, so then you can start to differentiate between where you're just writing about the method, where you are applying it to the school context, and where you are being very specific to the focus group and the boys and achievement, which is the focus of the question. So let's firstly think about the method. In this case, it is a focus group. And we have got a pause it task. So what I'd like you to do is draw a little bit of a table or use the handout, and I want you to review the practical, ethical and theoretical issues of using a focus group in educational research. When you're ready, join back in. We'll go through some of the things that you could write about. So when you're doing a focus group, you will need access to the group. That often means that you might need to get permission from the gatekeeper. In the school context, it's usually the head teacher. You've also got to consider the researcher's characteristics as well, because when you're running a focus group where you've got a group of people that are coming together to discuss a topic, they have a tendency to go off on a tangent. So you've got to have really strong interpersonal skills to keep people on the topic that you are investigating. They are usually quicker than individual interviews because you can research a number of people at the same time, whereas it is a little bit more complex when you are analysing the results. So you will need a little bit more time to do that. Ethically, you've got consent. The people sat there they know that they're taking part in research. However, what they tell you, you may want to have some sort of confidentiality of what you find. Likewise, and when we explore this context in a little bit more detail, that you might acquire some guilty knowledge, which might put the researcher in a compromising position. And in the case of doing a group interviews, there is an effect of peer pressure. You might have some people who are really dominant of the discussion, and that might put other people off speaking their opinions. Theoretically, validity, it can stimulate ideas, it can get people thinking, and you can get a lot of detail from individuals. However, there is that social desirability issue. Subjectivity, it's high in it. However, because of the lack of structure, because you don't have fixed questions, you're allowing people to speak and pick up on and bounce off ideas. There is a lack of reliability, which then means that positivists don't prefer this method. Sometimes you might only do 1 or 2 focus groups. So are the people that you're researching, could you generalise back to the research or the target population? And because of this high level of validity, interpretativists would prefer this method. So let's consider the issues within the school. Okay, so what I want you to do, I want you to see if you can apply some of the practical, ethical, theoretical issues to a school context. If you're using the handout, it's the next column. And then when you're ready, join yourself back in. We'll go through the answers. So the head teacher or the gatekeeper might refuse you access. And also when you're organising when you are going to do this group interview, when are you going to do it? Okay, so you're going to have some timetable issues. Exam time is often a barrier, and then also taking students or teachers away from class time. They may prefer you to do it during lunch times or after school, and that is going to have an impact on your sample. Okay. We've also got ethical issues. Students are a vulnerable group under 16. However, a group interview in this case is often more preferable. Students are used to working in groups when they are doing classwork, so it's very similar to what they're used to. So a group interview might be really good for this group. But topics that are related to students might be really sensitive, like material deprivation, racism, parental income. These are all sensitive topics. Are they good for doing in a group interview, in a focus group? Maybe not. You'll also need to do the DBS check, and just remember, when we are doing a focus group, there is that element of peer pressure. You could even encounter bullying, especially when we go into the context that we're going to look at in this question. And then finally, any issues that would affect the validity of the research. Well, students are going to see the researcher who is facilitating this focus group as a teacher in disguise. There's also going to be peer pressure, student subcultures, especially in this case, there might be laddish subcultures who might have really strong views, and that is going to influence the other students. Also, the pro-school kids might be more likely to volunteer to take part in a focus group at lunchtime after school. They might be part of the student council, for example, so they might be more likely to volunteer. And there's also speech codes as well. You as a researcher listening to the students talking amongst themselves, they're more likely to be using slang, and that's and then issues of restricted speech codes might come in, and that might make it difficult to understand what they are talking about. So let's do another pause it task. I want you to choose one of the points below and try and apply it to the context in the question. In this case, it is using focus groups to investigate boys and achievement. And I've given you an example of one that I've typed up already. Okay, so the boys being interviewed as part of a focus group may see the researcher as a teacher in disguise, because the reasons for their failure could be due to be part of a laddish subculture, which peer influence is important. They may talk about truancy, having a laugh, messing about to look good as part of that subculture, and they might feel they may get themselves into trouble or each other into trouble if they disclose this to the researcher in the group, because remember, they're seeing the teacher in disguise. And also, as part of being a part of a laddish subculture, group loyalty does come first. And as a result, the reasons for underachievement may not be uncovered, and it's going to have that knock-on effect as it impacts the validity. So I want you to have a little bit of a go and then join back in. Just a nice quick reminder about how to structure your answer. Okay, and we're going to go through some of these. We're going to do a clear intro, so outline what the method is. You get some knowledge out of the way there, and you may want to structure it into practical, ethical, theoretical. And as you are doing those, make sure you are addressing the school context and the context in the question as you go along. So let's have a little bit of a look at a good introduction then. So a good introduction gives the main qualities or characteristics of the method, who prefers it, and the type of data it produced. So here we go. A focus group is an interview consisting of several people, often known as a group interview, and they're being interviewed at the same time. The questions often follow a semi or unstructured format, which means they are quite open-ended, informal and relaxed, which is a clear strength, and will provide the researcher with an abundance of qualitative data, which means this method is favoured by interpretivists. And what you're doing there, you are getting some key knowledge out of the way of the method, because remember, you've got to show strengths and weaknesses of the method as well as that application. Okay, so let's go back. So we've got the intro out of the way. Let's have a cheeky little look at the main paragraphs then. Okay, so remember, we need to incorporate practical, ethical and theoretical. So what else do we need to consider? So I would start off by telling me something about the method. Strength is often really good. So for example, an ethical strength for this method is tell me what it is and explain why, and that will get you a band 3 nice little cheeky tick. Then apply it to the school context. Is there any ethical barriers to studying in a school? That still stays at band 3 because we've not mentioned the context in the question yet. So that's what you're going to do next. You're going to develop it and link it to the issue in the question, which is boys and achievement. That will get you B4 if you're just researching boys and achievement. And then to get B5, you will make sure you link it back to the method. So you apply the method to the group. So whoever you're researching, teachers, pupils, parents, about boys and achievements and what will be the long-term effect of that research. So we're going to have a look at a cheeky bit of a paragraph. It's quite a chunky paragraph because there's lots of things that I wanted to say, and you can develop them a little bit further as you do your practice. So let's have a look at an example paragraph. So we've got an ethical strength of a focus group is informed consent. They're a really good way to interview vulnerable groups because they're less stressful than one-to-one. They allow lots of research into the reasons for boys underachievement to be carried out. That is a B3, okay? It could apply to any group interview, any focus group, about anybody really. So because we've got no context there, it's going to stay as a B3, which is okay because we know that we're going to develop it. So let's talk about who we could be researching when we're looking at boys underachievement. So for example, the boys may not be comfortable talking in a group, meaning that influence due to peer pressure is likely. So we've got a bit of context about people that we might be researching, so boy pupils. This will lower the validity because if they're part of a larger subculture, which pressure and looking good in front of friends is important. So there might be a bit of an influence there, okay? Now it's quite generic. We've got no link to boys underachievement or boys achievement, but we've got a bit of context and we've got a link to the method a little bit as well, okay, peer pressure. But a possible strength could be that some boys, especially younger ones, may feel more comfortable in a group interview. They might open up, giving a first person insight about what factors might limit their achievements. And we're going to stay at B4 there. We are in a little bit of context, but we've not fully got into it, okay? However, a downside is that the boys may tell the researcher what might cause underachievement, which could be breaking school rules, risk getting the boys into trouble, and due to pupils being a vulnerable group, it's the job of the researcher to protect them, giving the boys or giving the person carrying out the research a bit of guilty knowledge. Likewise, being in a focus group, the boys who may be part of a larger subculture may show off in front of each other. They egg each other on to say similar things, exaggerating on reasons why they might underachieve, such as bunking off or cheeking the teacher, which is going to distort the results, causing a lack of validity of research into boys and achievements. So the reason why this final little bit gets a B5 is because we've got a bit about the focus group, okay? The issue is that they may show off, you egg each other on, so dominant people might influence others, which is a clear issue of a focus group. We've got a context of the group being studied, so larger subcultures, and we've got context here, and then we've got the impact of the research, okay, onto boys and achievement. So we've got quite a few points that we can develop on there, and you just see some examples for you there. So to follow up, consider the different questions or topics that could be discussed during boys and achievement. So it could be about larger subcultures, lack of male role models, feminised curriculum, home life, influence of parents or socialisation. You don't have to always research the boys when the topic is boys and achievement. You could actually have a focus group of teachers who are discussing it. You could have parents discussing it. You could have girls. You could have ask girls, why do you think boys underachieve, for example? And make sure you consider some issues such as social desirability and why, and guilty knowledge and why. Okay, so massive thank you for watching. We've got another video if you might be interested, which is methods in context, what is the bands? And this video should help you answer the methods in context question, which was using focus groups to investigate boys and achievements. Okay, download the handout, and massive thank you for watching. Bye.